Okay, so here we go. Welcome to the Mind Body Energy Project.
Yes.
Hello, Tiffany.
Hello, Yolanda.
How are you today, my love?
I'm good. Happy mid-morning.
Happy mid-morning.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's
we're
been a
not
long day already.
recording at the crack of dawn like we
I
usually
know.
do.
That's because I was up at the crack of dawn working on
Yeah,
something else. So
that
here
was
we
my
are
day
now.
yesterday. I was up at 4:30,
Oh, good Lord.
and then we had our recording for our Patreons yesterday at 7 a.m. So yeah, I mean,
Which was a great one.
yeah, oh, it was so good.
So
So,
good.
speaking of which, before we get started, Tiffany and I just want to invite you, if you do enjoy the content that we provide and you enjoy the podcasts, the reason we're able to provide so much free content is because we do have the support of our Patreons, and we're very thankful for that. So, if
Mm-hmm.
you want to support us in the work that we're doing and get some extras, because our Patreons all get bonus content. So,
Yep.
if you want to be a MB Insider, which is contributing $11 a month, you get so much content. You
Yeah.
get bonus conversations of the topics that we do. You get our Dear Diaries, as well as our monthly forecast that we provide every month. And we've even provided in the past additional online class modules to help with what we're talking about, and we're going to do more of that moving forward.
Yeah.
And then with our supporters, if you want to be a supporter, which is a $5 contribution, you still get access to our additional conversations and our Dear Diaries. So, but for all the goodies,
Mm-hmm.
it's become an MBE Insider, and you can learn more on our website, which is
Yeah.
mbeproject.com.
And the extra conversations that Yolanda's talking about, they're kind of my favorite because it's the third go around of the conversation. So it's subsequent to the topic that we discuss. And then we have our live Facebook event where we get insight from other people joining the conversation and kind of the experience of what happened in the past week. And we take all of that and bring it into a third conversation about all of it together. And I think the one we just did for Law of Attraction,
Yeah.
for the Patreons, I think that was my favorite third part of all of the conversations we've had.
Yeah, me too. I mean, it was, and I love that we do this because it also reminds us of things that we've already, studied or whatever. So it's kind of like a
Mm-hmm.
refresher for us. So it
Yeah.
puts you back into that ring of consideration and
Yeah.
recognizing things from new levels of perspective. So
Mm-hmm. Because as we journey through this experience, we're just gaining more and more wisdom from the experiences we have. And it's cool to see how they play out.
totally. And we always appreciate your feedback as well, because that gets our minds going. And
Yep.
in fact, the last topic that we had was suggested by one of our Patreons. So, come join the community. We really appreciate it. And there's just a lot of fun. I mean,
Yeah.
really, it is. It's a lot of fun.
Community isn't a community without other people engaging. And that's what we're building this off of is
Yeah.
you.
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 Today is brought to you by the letter U. So one thing I want to point out before we get into today's topic, which kind of segues into it, is today is the first day of Scorpio season.
Hallelujah. It's my
So,
favorite season.
yes, so we have Tiffany, our resident Scorpion.
Yes.
Happy birthday, Tiffy.
Thank you. Thank you.
And I have no season.
It's not today. It's November 3rd. So just for the record.
And choking over here. Yeah, so we'll remember to wish you a very happy birthday, which is coming up. I mean, so soon.
Thank you. It's my favorite holiday.
Away. We have a little over a week before your birthday.
2 weeks.
So 2 weeks.
Yeah.
And then, so how that segues into what we're talking about today, because we are approaching Halloween season.
Mm-hmm.
This month, throughout the month, is the time of year where it's said that the veil is the thinnest. So coming up, actually this weekend, Tiffany and I will be together to record our Halloween special, which will be so exciting to share with all of you. That will actually post next week, and I believe it posts on Halloween. Yeah.
Yeah.
Wednesday is Halloween. So stay tuned for that. We're going
Mm-hmm.
to be out
Yeah,
on
exploring.
location. Yeah.
Uh-huh.
So today what we're talking to you about is spell casting, getting us ready and in the mood.
Yep.
Spell casting. Before we get into that, I just want to ask you really quickly, are you dressing up for Halloween? Are you doing anything for Halloween?
Well, I wasn't planning on it because I love it so much that I'm either all or nothing. Like I want to create the best costume from scratch, and I haven't had much time or ideas to think about it. And then I also thought that I was going to see Wicked on Halloween,
Oh, I
but I
love
found out last
Wicked.
night it's actually on November 1st. So now my Halloween's back open again. So I'm gonna pretend like it's not happening because I don't have a good costume. I'm
That is
just kidding.
one of my favorite plays. I love Wicked.
Really?
Yeah.
I've never seen it. I'm excited for it.
Oh, it's so good.
Yeah.
It is so good. So for those of you, like if you haven't seen it, go see it if it comes to your town. It's the story of the Wizard of Oz,
The Wicked Witch before she
the
got
Wicked
wicked,
Witch.
right?
Yeah, the Wicked Witch before she became wicked. So it's like pre-Wizard of Oz, if you've ever seen that movie, but it's how Glenda the Good Witch and then the Wicked Witch of the West, like how their relationship came to be and how they became the witches that you then see in the Wizard of Oz. But it's such a good movie. I mean, good play.
I'm excited for
I've
it.
seen it a few times.
Yeah?
So much, yeah. I even have a t-shirt. Yeah,
Oh, check you
honey.
out. Maybe I'll get
Yeah.
a t-shirt.
Yeah, get the t-shirt. So,
Are you dressing up?
no. Mm-mm. I'm actually, because I recently moved, and where I lived before, there it was gated, and so there were no kids, there were no trick or
Uh-huh.
treaters. And now where I live, there's a
You're
high
gonna have trick-or-treating.
probability
Yeah.
that there will be trick or
That's
treaters. So,
exciting. I never got to like give candy out because where I grew up, like we just didn't, it wasn't a good spot. It was a
mhm.
busy street and on a hill. But I might go to my friend's house and hand out candy to their trick-or-treaters. I think that'll be fun.
Yeah, I mean, I'm looking forward to it. Honestly, I'm a little nervous about it because times have changed. I don't know what these little rugrats are like now.
Yeah, I know. They're
But
like a Tootsie Roll,
right.
little
What a
ingrates.
good
I'm just
crap.
kidding.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, yeah. So I will be giving out candy on Halloween, and that's it. But I'm
Very
really
exciting.
looking forward to being with you this weekend. That's what I'm actually looking forward to.
I know. It's going to be fun.
Yeah.
Okay. Should we get
Okay.
into the
So
spell casting? Because
yeah,
it's
yeah,
not
yeah.
about like the witchery,
I know. I know. Okay.
though
So
we've led you down that path.
yes, and we have a special surprise around spell casting for our Patreons that we'll let you know at the end. So
Yeah.
stay
Stay
tuned.
tuned.
So spell casting.
Mm-hmm.
What's so interesting about this, obviously, is when we hear this, initially we think about casting spells as if it's like some witchery.
Mm-hmm.
But what we often overlook and a lot of us don't consider is that we are casting spells all the time. Our words are powerful,
Mm-hmm.
and our words like give life to like whatever is brewing inside of us, right? So it's like that whole energy of everything we've talked about over the weeks, our perceptions, that inner working, our feeling, our emotion, all of that. Think of that as like the cauldron. It's all bubbling up, boiling over. And then we speak out that energy of whatever is going on internally, and our words are vibration. And
Yeah.
so our words, not only do they reveal what is going on for our inner workings, but they also start to shape and craft what's happening outside of us energetically.
Mm-hmm.
So the first layer of this is recognizing, one, that your words in of themselves are quite powerful. And so that's what we're talking about today, the spells that we are casting all the time,
Mm-hmm.
so that you can start recognizing how you are casting spells in your
Right.
life.
Yeah.
Change
So
some of them.
yeah, obviously several things came up in my mind as you were talking about that. One of them was the book, The Four Agreements.
Mm-hmm.
I read it a long time ago and I've read it several times and I really like it. One of the agreements is to always be impeccable with your word. So what I took away from that is really a mindfulness about, okay, what are these words? Like, why am I saying them? What am I trying to achieve by speaking them? And am I actually being mindful about what's coming out of my mouth?
Right.
So taking a moment to be like, to analyze, like, is this just an emotional reaction, which is fine, but is it something that you want to cast out there to create the karma or the effect of what would come back at you, or are you actually being truthful with your words of the situation or of the person, and truthful with yourself of what you're actually speaking? Or is it a conditioned response? And we've talked about this in mind mapping, perception, and even the law of it.
Vulnerability.
Yeah. And
Mhm.
even like the law of attraction, like it is a vibration, what we give out. So whatever that vibration is, they meet. We're always going to attract that which is alike.
Yeah,
And
and we also, like we shared with the Patreons yesterday about cause and effect. It makes me think of even the word you just said was the impact of what we say. So even when you think about, if we think of this in an extreme term, think of how biting words can be and how hurtful they can be. You can literally like shift someone's mood, their perception of themselves. Perhaps it's happened to you where someone was constantly criticizing you, berating you, whatever it was. Think of what someone else's words have done to you. Just their words. They didn't have
yeah.
to physically do anything else. Just their words completely shifted something in your own field. And on the other end of the spectrum, think of how encouraging and empowering people's words can be. And like, you could be having like a shit day and then somebody says something to you that is uplifting and it totally changes your whole mood, your whole feeling, or even maybe your belief system. If someone is,
Yeah.
you know, feeding you the right words, or being very mindful and loving in what it is they are projecting out.
I just thought about cults, which kind of like fits into all this too, like how powerful we can utilize them, and if we're being aware of ourselves and our intention of why we're using the words.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that reminds me of programming. And so, I mean, it even speaks to like the commercials that we are inundated with, or songs, music that we're inundated with. When we hear words or things again and again on repeat, it literally starts to program our minds.
Yeah.
And even unconsciously, then you're like singing jingles, and then you want to go buy those, whatever it may be, just because you were constantly fed this thing, this thing, this thing. So backing it up to ourselves, what are you repeating to yourself constantly? Like what spells are you casting in your own mind? Even if you're not saying them out loud, you may be casting spells internally, these stories of two of the biggest words I always tell people be mindful of with their spell casting are always and never. Those
That's good.
are really powerful spells, because if you're saying that you always do something, like a big one is like when people say, I always choose the wrong partner. What do you think you're going to keep doing? Like, you're casting that spell, you're feeding that into your belief, and then it's like always, that's repetition.
Yeah.
Or even to say, I never choose the right person. Well, again, I mean, that's like a deep-seated program, or it's powerful. So yeah, pay attention.
It makes me think about how, I've had conversations with people, and I've had the conversation myself, and then I've received it from people where we talk about ridiculous things, like things we're thinking that in our heads seem to be true, but even though it's kind of illusion, and somebody looking at you sees that that's not true, and then we speak it. And I've been at times where I'm like sharing this story that's going on in my head, and I'm like, I know this isn't true, but it's how I feel and it's what I keep thinking. And I'm always curious of observing when we actually speak them out and have somebody feel that for us, because it's something we believe, but two, like, also the point of sharing it to get that feedback and just getting it out of your system, because the more we keep it inside, it's like that story just lives in there without any other outside perspectives to kind of bring you back and ground you. And it just lives in there, and it becomes its own cauldron inside, where it just gets bigger and bigger and bigger. And it starts to run our lives, because as we're talking about, it's like a muscle. It keeps on conditioning itself, and it grows stronger. And then we just start to believe it more.
And you start
better to get it out.
Yeah.
Right.
You start functioning from these spells that you're casting internally or externally.
Right.
But the beauty is, and what I like of what you just shared, is sometimes when we do share and we're able to hear someone else's perspective, and then it shifts our perspective, or even like causes us to question our own spells that we're casting.
Yeah.
the beauty in this is that there is always an opportunity to change your spells, to change your mind, to change your perspective, to change the programming.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, like all things, everything is, malleable, especially the mind and these spells that we've generated. So one thing that's important is, like, as we're talking about this, if you're starting to think about your own, like, things that you may have said or echo on repeat that may be working against you, don't beat yourself up like, oh no, I'm so ridiculous, I can't believe this is what I've been saying. Because that, again, that is a spell of, like, abuse to yourself.
Right.
So it's like, just recognize, like, oh, okay, well, it was interesting that was my point of view. Let me change or reshape this spell,
Mm-hmm.
or this thought, or these words. And the interesting thing is although it may sound subtle, it's huge, because if you start changing these stories, you start then functioning from a new storyline.
Mm-hmm. As you're saying that, like, shifting the perspective, it made me think about, like, a giant telescope. Like, if you've gone to a planetarium where there's super powerful telescopes, and, like, they just change it like the slightest degree, and you start to see, like, so much more clarity of what's way far out there. That's just the vision I got, and, like, how impactful just a tiny degree of shifting can be.
Yeah.
But previous to that, there's also a willingness to release the spells. I think that we hold tight to the spells that we create inside of us because we've gained comfort with them. And if we're unwilling to release them, or if we're willing to release them, we know that what comes with that is a greater shift. And with that shift comes unknowns. And, we have to be brave to see what's on that unknown frontier and pioneer through it. So just throwing that out there as, like, a call to action, because I think sometimes subconsciously we try to even wipe that idea away so that we don't have to do it and we don't have to be uncomfortable.
Totally. Well, I think it also speaks to that whole allowing yourself to re-identify, because a lot of times we identify ourselves through these stories, through these spells, and, like, we have become, like you're saying, like, so used to this belief, like I am shy. Okay. Like, that was a story of mine forever. And yeah, to some degree, maybe. But if I had clung to that story of I am shy, I am shy, I am shy, I never would have started podcasting. I surely wouldn't be here talking to Tiffany with you all in the Mind Body Energy Project. So it's like I had to consciously shift that perspective, or that spell I was casting, into I am able to show up and converse with strangers. I am able to, and I had to work through layers of it. But the point is that particular identification of myself would have actually caused blocks and limitation in my life had I clung to that identification. And again, it's one of those things, certain things are so ingrained in us that we think, like, well, if I'm shy, I'm shy. There's no way I can release that.
Yeah.
Bull crap. Yes, you can. You can change any of it. And it may be uncomfortable, like Tiffany is saying, and it may take some work to, like, work through the releasing of that, but it can be done.
Yeah. Two things. I identified as being shy, and I was as a kid. I was painfully shy. And I carried that story for a long time. And I mean, there's certain circumstances where I am very much that, but because I was living under that guise and that story for so long in myself, and I wasn't sharing that with other people, as I grew and my experience and things that I had to step up to in order to live my life, that story was no longer applicable. And what started happening was that it was shifting my perspective of it, and the way they perceived me started to conflict very much so. So here I am thinking I'm shy and quiet and hidden, and people don't perceive me that way at all. So because I'm behaving under that story, what really happened is that people thought I was intimidating and bitchy.
Yeah.
And so the first few times that I heard that, it shocked me, because I'm like, what are you talking about? And I really had to work with understanding that and having to work through this story that may have felt real, but it wasn't real from an outside perspective.
Totally. And that's the whole thing, is, like, broadening our view and, like, having that willingness to see from other lenses, or to see from a wider scope. Again, a lot of times we try to cling to the identity or the belief so staunchly, as if, like, I think part of it too is like, I know who I am, but it's, like get just what if there's a possibility that there is a bigger picture than what you are able to see or what you've been seeing for so long. It kind of reminds me of what do you call those, like the mental blinders they put on the horses, or
Yeah.
like you hear the story of if you were in a room of complete darkness and all you had was a torch, you would have a very limited view. But then if someone turned on the light switch, all of a sudden you would see that there were so many things in the room that were out of your view or your scope.
Mm-hmm.
The same happens when we do allow ourselves to actually hear or have consideration beyond our little limited
Yeah.
perspective.
So I was thinking too, the Myers-Briggs test, and there's
Yes.
plenty of personality tests out there, and like our astrological birth charts, all those things that they can help us kind of understand ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
And I've had people love the Myers-Briggs tests. They
Mm-hmm.
love it, and I think it is great that it can help us identify things to understand ourselves better. But I do think that there's a tipping point. So I've seen people cling so hard to those identifying factors, like, oh, that test told me that I'm an introvert, and they
Yeah.
stick to it. And then it becomes kind of a crutch where they're just like, oh, well, this is just how I function, so this is how I'm going to be. And like you were saying, all of it's malleable. Everything is malleable. And if we come to understand something that we identify with, doesn't necessarily mean it's completely ingrained in our character. It's just
Right.
proving like it's weighted on that side, but it's not a prison sentence or a life sentence to that one thing. It can be shifted. And I'm just throwing that out there as a challenge too, for people who are stuck in like, this is how I function, this is how I do it. But yet, if you step back and analyze that, is that spell that you're casting on that idea, is it causing you resistance in your life or disrupt somewhere? And you're
Yeah.
just sticking with, well, I can't change. You can change. Everything changes.
Yes. And that's the thing I think is so big, like what you said. I think that is part of the thing. We want so badly to identify
Mm-hmm.
with something. And a lot of times it even speaks to that innate want to connect or relate, that relatability. Like, oh, I did the test. Are you the same? People compare like,
Yeah.
oh, what are you? Oh, this is what I am. Like we are almost obsessed with identification. I think it speaks to on that soul level of really wanting to know and understand ourselves so deeply that
Mm-hmm.
anything that speaks to, oh, this is what or who or why you are, we are just like, yes, give it to
Yeah.
me. But even that, I mean, even looking at ourselves in astrology, it's all more of, even those tests, it's different when we have the mindset of, what this is actually pointing out is my tendency, but it's not in stone, just like you're saying. Like nothing has to be absolute. Nothing is absolute, but yeah, it's a tendency that I can then craft or maneuver in any way that I choose.
Yeah.
Yeah. So with the spell casting though, I want to ask you, because, we cast like general spells a lot. What we've been talking about have to do with our identification of self, but we cast spells in different areas of our lives as well, like you hear people casting spells about their job. I hate it, I hate it, I hate it, I hate it. Oh, well.
Oh,
And then
yeah.
all of a sudden the job is over and they're like, oh no, what happened, honey? You
Yeah.
were spell casting.
Yeah.
It's like what we put out there of what we say we want or what we keep echoing again and again, things start to shift and change to meet us in that spell, and then we're like shocked.
Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah, have there been any things in your life where like you could think of that perhaps your spell casting has been evident, whether it worked out great, it was a good one, or it was one that maybe worked against you?
I'm specifically thinking about the job that I recently quit. Actually, both of them. Now
Mhm.
that I think about it, both of my two corporate jobs that I was in, they're the only two corporate jobs that I had after graduating, and both of them. The first one, I pretty much didn't like it from the moment I stepped foot, but it was a really great opportunity, fresh out of college, all this stuff. And I was very fortunate to move from the East Coast to the West Coast and remain with them, and slid right back into the same job. I mean, it was wonderful. But after a year of that, I didn't like it from the beginning. And I moved because I didn't like the weather and I didn't like my job. So I knew I could change one of the two. So I picked one and I moved. And after a year, I got put on a job. I'm in San Diego. I got put on a job back in New York, like upstate New York.
Mm,
And it was to do a 4-week project in 2 weeks by myself in the winter. And
wow.
I was like, saw that I got scheduled for that. And I was like, mm-mm. I'm like, I do not like this. I do not like this. And I certainly don't want to do that. And like, I'm just there. The trajectory of this career is not where I want to go anyways. So I spent like 4 years just being miserable in this job. And finally, like something came in to blow it up. Cause I called the HR and I was like, I was kind of panicking a little bit. And now this person is actually one of my close friends, but she didn't know me at all at the time. So I called her and I was like, I can't do this. I cannot go up there. I can't do this job. I don't even want to work here anymore. I'm like just spewing everything. I was like, do you think I should quit? I'm like, I think I should quit. I think it's probably time for me to quit. And she's like, the regional HR manager is coming down next week. Do you want me to set up an appointment with her? I was like, okay. I'm like, do you think I should have a retire or what do you call it? Retirement letter. It's not retirement.
Resignment.
Resignment. Yeah. I was like, do you think I should have a resignment letter ready? And she's like, I don't know. And I'm like, I probably should. Let me just do that. So it was just kind of funny. And I had nothing lined up. I had no idea what I was going to do. I had some things in my back pocket, but I literally was just like, I just know I need to get out of here. But for 4 years, it built up this energy of like, I do not like this. And it did get me places I wanted to go. But finally, it was like, if I wasn't put on that job scheduled in New York with all these other insane variables with it, I probably would still have been struggling with how do I get out. I mean, something would have shown up, but yeah, I cast a 4-year spell and it finally came to fruition and it was terrifying. I remember calling my parents and crying and being like, I just quit. And they're like, okay.
Well, that's one of the things too, is I don't think we realize like how much like the repetition of something causes those spells to like literally combust, right?
Yeah.
So, and they will push us into a space of discomfort because you have been like, again, like in your inner cauldron, like building and calling in this change, I'm uncomfortable. I don't like it. I don't like it. And if this thing just starts to expand until it reminds me of like the Tower card in tarot, like, I mean, boom, all of a sudden there's
a frightening card, but it's really quite beautiful in what it's doing. We spend all that time building this up, and when it's time for it to fall and rebuild again, we jump out of the flaming window, and that's okay.
Yeah, no, totally. And 2 things came up for me. I wrote down while you were saying that you reminded me of is sometimes too our spells as they are coming into fruition or playing out look a lot different than maybe what we would have ever imagined or expected. Like when you say that to me, I think of when I was at the start of all of this, like Reiki meditation, all of these things. What I was casting, the spell I was casting is I want peace of mind. I want clarity. I want direction. I want to understand my purpose. Even though I had no idea of this realm of work and these things, the spells that I was casting and what I was speaking to spoke directly to exactly what I was led to. Now, I couldn't have imagined that because, I didn't even know anything about it. I never even heard about Reiki. So it's interesting too, a lot of times what we are putting out there, it will lead us, and what starts to manifest may be something far beyond anything we could have personally imagined. But also with that, I want to point out is our vibration, because as we start to do this work and we work on ourselves and we start clearing out our own stuff and doing our own healing, we start to literally, our frequency changes. And that's why some people become more sensitive to energy. Some people start to tune into their intuition more deeply. You're literally changing vibrationally. And with
changing
that,
your nervous system to some degree.
No, totally.
But what we're opening ourselves up to receive.
Yeah. And that's the thing, is you also strengthen your casting. So you also want to, as I started doing this work and going deeper into it, I started to notice like the synchronicities, but also it felt like what I started to notice is things that I was saying, they started to happen much quicker. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So just be mindful of that. as you do this work on yourself, you also want to be very mindful of what you're putting out there, because that frequency has shifted and things will start to move a bit quicker than perhaps when you were functioning at a more dense level. And it's harder for things to move. So just keep that in mind. Don't say I didn't tell you.
As you were talking about you were just seeking peace of mind and clarity, and like you didn't think that Reiki and all these other things were going to fall into place to get you there. I was thinking about how, like, what came to mind was focusing on the what, not the how.
Yep.
You know, like you were focused on just your peace of mind and your clarity, that the how didn't matter. And something like Reiki works its way into your life. You know, if you were focused on the how, if Reiki came in, you would look at it and be like, I'm sorry, what the fuck is that stuff?
Yeah.
What's this Reiki you talk about? That sounds ludicrous. I'm not doing it. But by remaining open, it opens up a whole world of opportunities and something that we wouldn't have really known that could have gotten us there, not like unknown vehicles of getting us to our destination.
That's why a lot of times I think in spell casting, it is more beneficial to us when we just consider the experience we want to have.
Yes.
And just like you're saying, not be concerned with the how, because things can unfold and play out in ways, again, far beyond anything we could have ever imagined. Like, again, I would have never, if you would have told me 10 years ago, this is what I'd be doing and this is what my life would be, I was, like in my corporate life, I would have thought you were crazy.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. Both of us.
That was it. I just knew the experience I wanted to have. And it's almost like I'm thankful in some ways that I was like lost in my confusion.
Yeah.
And like not having an idea. I didn't have a vision of what that looked like. And that was actually in a lot of ways to my benefit, because just like you're saying, I wasn't tied to or married to a particular outcome. Right. I just knew what I wanted to experience, and I was open to whatever that could have been.
And it comes back to what we were talking about, law of attraction. You know, if we focus on the how, it's putting that death grip on that one thing that we're thinking is right, you know, and we don't know everything. You know the summation of your experiences and what you think may work, but there could be a lot of other outliers that could. And if you're death gripping on one thing, these other outliers that could probably be more efficient and effective can't get in.
Totally. And it's so interesting. Again, every time we have these conversations, it echoes for me that they just seem like such little subtle nuggets that, you know, there are things that it's like we kind of know these things already, but we never really tune in and truly pay attention to the impact of these things, and how, although they may seem simple to some degree, they are so big, and they do make such a big difference in how we live and what our experiences may be. But also that what I love about all of these conversations that we've had in this community is it all really highlights how much of a role we play, like how much we actually do get to choose and manipulate and spell cast, and we have choice in all of it. And it's just a matter of recognizing how you're playing now and how you want to alter to better align with whatever your personal goals may be.
Yeah. I want to bring it back to one of the first things I wrote down, and it'll infiltrate a lot of what we're talking about, but mostly like the usage of our words and vibrations and stuff. Have you seen the video with the experiment with the two plants? They're two like little trees, and they put them up in a school, and they're encased in clear plastic cases, and they have audio feeding into the case. And one of the cases, it's like really nice, happy things, like complimentary. And then the other case is bullying. So it's an experiment to show kids like why bullying is, how bad it is and how impactful it is. So it shows like the tree that's getting compliments is thriving, and the one that's being bullied, I mean, it's simply they're being watered the same, they're getting the same amount of sunlight, there's all those other constants, but the variable is the words that are being said to it. And there's vibrations in words, and the one that's being bullied it's dying essentially.
Yeah. You told me about this before and I hadn't seen it, but it brought up, remember we had a conversation about the movie I Am, because they show an experiment similar to that in I Am. If you guys haven't seen that movie, it's very interesting. I Am the movie. But we also discussed Dr. Emoto and
Right. Yeah. The water
experiment with the water
molecule.
crystals. The
Hmm.
same thing, exactly what you're saying. He tested, like, looked at the water molecules and how they, like, when he wrote words on glasses,
Hmm.
or, you know, would even speak beautiful, loving, supportive words. And the water crystals started looking like snowflakes. They were gorgeous. They were absolutely gorgeous. But then the glasses that had like hate and these like low, like angry words and things, the water crystals, the molecules, they looked like they just looked damaged. They weren't pretty.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah. So again, yeah, no, totally speaks to the power of our words.
And I mean, so our words are what do the spell casting because it comes from our internal cauldron, and the words are how we deliver it.
Mhm.
So even just thinking, do your own experiment, sit and say some like ugly words and see how it feels. Like, how
Yes.
do the actual vibrations of the word coming out of your mouth, how does it feel in your body and in your energy and in like the space around you? And then say nice words, and start experimenting with that just to see how that shifts your own experience, your physical experience, your emotional experience. And then, I think that we get a little mindless about that. And if we take a step back to really ingrain our own personal experiment, then we can start to think like, why would I berate myself? Why would I cast these spells on myself and others, when we all could feel better?
Well, it's funny because I know when we talked about Dr. Emoto before, we kind of touched on it. And after the fact, it made me think of what I'm about to say. And it goes perfectly with this because we are primarily water as well. And you think
Mm-hmm.
about if words literally have an impact on the molecular structure of water, the water crystals, think about that you're primarily water and how literally it's like changing words can change your own constitution. But then think of, really tune into how you feel when people are speaking to you. How do people's words make you feel? And notice if you start, like, even you see things or you hear things and it makes you like sick, it makes you uncomfortable, you get unnerved
Mm-hmm.
just from words or even tone, right?
Oh
But
yeah.
then also notice how you feel when those words are coming out of your mouth. So you
Uh-huh.
know how you feel when you're talking about something that pissed you off? You feel like, ah, like you feel like, ugh, you don't feel great. But versus when you are speaking lovingly and you're like, oh, I love you, oh, Tiffy, you're so gorgeous. Like you feel different vibrationally. So yeah, I think that's a beautiful thing to point out, Tiffany. I mean, on top of, not only does our spell casting impact what we are creating in our reality and our experience, but it also impacts like our well-being.
Mm-hmm. And I think too, when we're not being mindful of it, we're not aware of the callus that it builds up,
Yeah.
because yeah, these negative things are coming at us or they're coming from the inside out. And subconsciously, these bodies and minds are incredible. They're going to do what they need to do to survive. So they will adapt and they will do whatever it takes to protect us from ourselves to some degree or from other people. So we will start to build a mechanism of survival and create calluses of these vibrations. So then it gets to a point where that becomes the new normal. And so we start to just um, kind of just take it, and until we step back and be like, oh, hold on a second. How have I gotten so far down this path without, peeling these layers away and seeing what is actually underneath all of it
Yeah.
that's truthful in the spell casting or not. So I think an
Let's
awareness of callousing is really important.
Well, that reminds me of how, in this realm, like everyone talks about how a lot of people believe that our vibration and our energy, um, sorry, the energy of our emotion literally can cause dis-ease or disharmony within our being. And again, if you look at how our words and what we speak are a reflection of what we feel, or a reflection of our emotional state, a reflection of our energy and perception and all of these things, you can um, observe your words and what you are casting as a reflection of, a projection of what is going on with you internally. And so with what you're speaking, are your words healthy?
Mm-hmm.
Are they potentially words that would cause imbalance? Like, you know what I mean? Like, really be an observation of that and start thinking from that mindset of, am I functioning from and speaking in imbalance, or am I functioning from and speaking in love, in
Mm-hmm.
harmony? And wherever I may be off, why? And do exactly what Tiffany said. Start considering, what is the root of whatever I am speaking or doing that is clearly off?
Yeah.
Like, where does this stem from? And again, how can I change it? And sometimes this is why people use affirmations and mantras and these things, because even if we don't necessarily know what the root is right away, sometimes the practice of just changing our words and spell casting differently helps to reprogram and change those energies, even if we don't have a complete understanding of where it may what the origin may be.
Mm-hmm.
Although it usually does come to the surface.
Yeah, it will eventually at some
Yeah.
point, if not right away. There's this super cool, super nerdy book that I read, and I want to read it again. It's called Molecules of Emotion, and it
Mm.
was written by Candace Pert, and she's a medical doctor, and she researched like how these specific peptides that come are either created or affected by our emotions and how they actually affect our body. And it's pretty, it's cut and dry scientific, and it's pretty impactful, the message of it.
The molecule of emotion, or molecules of
Molecules of
emotion.
Emotion by Candace Pert.
We have to remember to put that in the link,
Yes.
in the in the show description, so
Yeah.
people can check that out. I want to check that out.
It's super freaking cool.
Yeah. So hopefully, just in this conversation today, it does give you some consideration of how you are spell casting, and
Mm-hmm.
remembering the component that you have choice in recasting or recrafting your spells. And so for our Patreons, our insiders, so those of you who contribute the $11 a month contribution, again, thank you to all of you, by the
Yeah.
way. Like,
Thank you.
again, we are so thankful for your support, because it helps us to share this free content with everyone.
Mm-hmm.
So thank you for that. So what we're going to provide for the insiders is, a few years ago, I did an online course called Spellcasting 101, and it's 4 modules. And each module focuses on the spells you're casting in different areas of your life. So the first one is in your spells around relationship. Week 2 is your spells around health. Then the third week is money. And the fourth week is the spell around your life path. So we are going to unlock those to you all, one per week, starting this week. And so there'll be a new one for you each time, so that you can go deeper into your own spell casting and what it is you are crafting. And if anyone wants to access that, just become a Patreon, become an MBE insider. Again, we really appreciate the support, and that's why we're doing all that we can, and we'll be doing more going forward to give back to you in appreciation.
Yeah. It's a symbiotic relationship.
Yes. We like balance and harmony.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
Give and share, receive.
Yes. So, my love, I hope that you have fun spell casting today. It's
Yeah,
been
I'm gonna
lovely.
be very mindful of my spell casting.
Yeah. Yeah. I was going to say, it's been lovely exchanging spells with you today.
Yes. Uh-huh. It sure has.
Yeah. So, again, we hope that you enjoyed this, and Tiffany and I will be together this weekend to share with you our Halloween special for the following week. And that's it. I mean,
Yeah.
so much. I mean, we're just starting this, you guys. I mean, think
I know.
this MBE project has only been for like a couple of months. Like, it hasn't even been a year yet. So
We
there's
want to go
so much.
global,
Yeah.
retreat, in-person
Yeah,
thing.
we want to meet you, play with you in person.
Yeah.
So with that, also, please share. Like, if you think that these conversations are useful for anyone that you know, please share. Like, share the little Facebook link, share our podcast, whatever. We really appreciate it, and we do.
You know what I just envisioned? I just envisioned like like book clubs around the world getting together to talk about in their own little community to talk about these topics together.
Oh, that would be a really cool one. Yeah,
Yeah.
Mind Body
I'm
Energy
just
Project.
spellcasting that right now.
Yes, that's a good spellcast. Yeah, get
Right?
together and have conversations about these topics. Oh, that would
Yeah.
be so good.
I know.
Wow,
I just saw it. I just saw little pockets of people and all over the world. It's
honey,
gonna be
that's
great.
so cool.
I know.
Hey, well, listen, if any of you decide, you know what, we're going to do this, I'm going to have my friends watch these videos and then we're
Yeah.
all going to meet to discuss over
Yeah.
tea.
Yeah. Let us know.
Let us know.
Yeah.
That would be so cool. Let us know.
Hashtag MBE project.
Yes, yes. And actually, anything that comes up for you in these conversations, if you post it, share it, hashtag MBE project, and we will be able to see it. So
Yeah.
that'd be
Yeah.
really fun too.
So
All
fun.
right.
All right.
Well,
Until
happy
next time.
casting. Until next time, love. Bye.
Bye.